Tak, ja czuję. I'm not the devil you think that I am.
July 2026 has become a heartbreaking month for the entertainment world. Within just a few days, music and film lost Bonnie Tyler, Victor Willis, Shaun Glass, Beaky, Bennett and Michael Byrne. While each came from a different generation and background, they all left an unforgettable mark on audiences around the world. Behind every headline is a story of resilience, sacrifice, success, and personal struggle that deserves to be remembered. Today, the focus goes beyond their passing to celebrate the lives they lived, the careers they built, and the legacies they leave behind. If you enjoy thoughtful stories like this, like the video, marks far more than the loss of another famous singer. It represents the closing chapter of an era when powerful voices dominated radio without relying on trends or social media. According to reports released after her passing, Tyler died on the 8th of July, 2026 in Portugal at the age of 75 after complications linked to earlier intestinal surgery. The announcement came the following day, bringing an emotional response from fans and fellow musicians across Britain and around the world. The circumstances of her death also serve as a reminder that even when an operation appears successful, recovery can remain unpredictable, particularly later in life. It is another example of how public figures often continue living active lives while quietly managing serious medical issues away from the spotlight. Long before the world knew her as Bonnie Tyler, she was born Gaynor Hopkins in Skewen, Wales, into a large working-class family. Growing up in a modest household shaped her determination from an early age. Success was never guaranteed, and music became both an escape and an opportunity. Unlike many stars who appeared to arrive overnight, Tyler spent years performing in local clubs before anyone outside Wales recognized her talent. That slower journey arguably strengthened her resilience because she entered the music industry understanding that lasting success required persistence rather than luck. Her breakthrough arrived during the late 1970s with Lost in France and It's a Heartache, but it was the early 1980s that transformed her into a global superstar. When Total Eclipse of the Heart exploded onto international charts in 1983, it became much more than another hit single. The dramatic production, emotional lyrics, and Tyler's unmistakable raspy voice created one of popular music's defining recordings. Even decades later, the song remained a staple at sporting events, television programs, films, and karaoke nights around the world. Few artists ever produce a recording that survives multiple generations, yet Tyler achieved exactly that. The continued popularity of the song demonstrates that timeless music is built on emotion rather than fashion. Trends disappear, but songs that genuinely connect with people continue finding new audiences. Another career-defining moment followed with Holding Out for a Hero, a song that became just as enduring thanks to its appearance in films, television, and countless sporting montages. Rather than becoming trapped by a single success, Tyler established herself as an artist whose music repeatedly found new life through popular culture. That longevity reflects something many performers struggle to achieve. Commercial success may create fame, but cultural relevance is what creates a legacy. One of the most remarkable aspects of Bonnie Tyler's career was the obstacle that nearly ended it before it truly began. During the 1970s, she underwent surgery to remove vocal nodules and was instructed not to speak while recovering. Instead, she accidentally strained her healing vocal cords, permanently altering her voice into the husky sound that later became her trademark. What initially appeared to be a devastating setback ultimately distinguished her from every other singer of her generation. Sometimes the qualities people fear most become the very characteristics that define their success. Tyler's voice became instantly recognizable within seconds, a rarity in any era of music. Away from the stage, Tyler maintained one of the entertainment industry's longest and quietest relationships. She married property developer Robert Sullivan in 1973, years before international fame transformed her career. Unlike many celebrity couples whose relationships unfolded under relentless media attention, they largely kept their private life out of headlines. Their marriage lasted more than 5 decades, surviving the pressures that have ended countless high-profile relationships. That stability offered a striking contrast to an industry often associated with constant upheaval. Their personal life, however, was not without profound sadness. Early in their marriage, the couple hoped to build a family, but Tyler suffered a miscarriage, an experience she later acknowledged publicly. They never had children. Rather than allowing personal disappointment to define her public identity, Tyler focused her energy on music, touring and maintaining the relationship that had supported her long before global fame arrived. Her willingness to speak about pregnancy loss also helped remove some of the stigma surrounding a subject many women had previously felt pressured to keep private. That honesty added another dimension to her public image, revealing vulnerability beneath the powerhouse performer audiences saw on stage. Family remained an important part of Tyler's identity throughout her life. Raised alongside several siblings in Wales, she often credited her upbringing for keeping her grounded despite worldwide success. Coming from a large household taught resilience, humor, and the value of hard work, qualities that continued shaping her career decades later. Even after achieving international recognition, she never abandoned her Welsh roots, proudly representing them wherever she performed. That connection mattered because audiences often respond most strongly to artists who remain authentic rather than reinventing themselves to satisfy changing fashions. Looking back across Bonnie Tyler's achievements reveals a career that extended far beyond chart positions. She sold millions of records worldwide, earned Grammy nominations, collected numerous international awards, represented the United Kingdom at the Eurovision Song Contest in 2013, and continued touring well into her 70s. Many performers fade after one successful decade, yet Tyler consistently attracted audiences across Europe and beyond for more than 40 years. Her career illustrates that longevity depends less on chasing trends than on building genuine connections with listeners. Bonnie Tyler leaves behind a catalogue of songs that will almost certainly outlive everyone discussing them today. More importantly, she leaves behind a story of resilience. Health challenges reshaped her voice. Personal loss reshaped her private life. The changing music industry reshaped the business around her. Yet through every chapter, she remained unmistakably Bonnie Tyler. That may prove to be one of disco's biggest voices survived addiction, legal battles, and the collapse of an entire musical movement, only for his final chapter to arrive with almost no warning. Victor Willis died on the 30th of June, 2026 at the age of 74 after what his family described as a short but aggressive illness. While the exact medical condition was never publicly disclosed, the announcement from his wife immediately prompted an outpouring of tributes from musicians and fans who recognized that the original voice of Village People had left an extraordinary mark on popular music. The lack of a detailed medical explanation also reflected a reality that many families choose during periods of grief. Public curiosity rarely outweighs the right to private mourning. Although the world knew him as the police officer from Village People, Victor Willis was much more than a performer in costume. He was one of the group's founding members and, more importantly, one of the principal songwriters behind its greatest successes. YMCA, Macho Man, and In the Navy became international anthems not simply because of memorable choruses but because Willis helped create songs that encouraged audiences to participate rather than merely listen. That formula transformed Village People from another disco act into a global cultural phenomenon. Decades after disco faded from the charts, those songs remained fixtures at weddings, sporting events, and celebrations across the world. Few artists can claim that their work became part of everyday culture, yet Willis accomplished exactly that. His career, however, was anything but straightforward. During the early 1980s he stepped away from Village People as drug addiction began taking control of his life. Willis later spoke candidly about his dependence on crack cocaine, admitting that it destroyed opportunities, relationships, and financial security. That honesty deserves recognition because many public figures continue hiding addiction until it is too late. Willis instead used his own mistakes as a warning to others, demonstrating that fame offers no protection against destructive choices. His eventual recovery became one of the least discussed yet most inspiring chapters of his life because rebuilding after addiction often requires greater strength than achieving fame in the first place. Away from music, Willis experienced significant changes in his personal relationships. He was previously married to actress Felicia Rashad before the marriage ended during one of the most turbulent periods of his life. Years later he found lasting stability with Karen Huff Willis, who remained by his side for many years and ultimately announced his passing to the public. Their relationship illustrated how second chances are possible even after years of personal struggle. Rather than allowing his past to define him permanently, Willis rebuilt both his career and his private life. His achievements extended beyond performing. Following lengthy legal disputes over copyright ownership, Willis secured landmark victories that strengthened songwriters' rights in the American music industry. Those legal wins were significant because they reminded artists that creative ownership can remain valuable decades after a song is first released. Many musicians quietly benefited from legal precedents established during his fight for fair compensation. In that sense, his influence reached far beyond the recording studio. Victor Willis also maintained close ties with members of his family throughout his life, although he generally kept relatives away from public attention. Unlike many celebrities who constantly placed their families before cameras, Willis preferred allowing his professional achievements to remain the focus. That decision probably contributed to the privacy his loved ones were able to preserve during his final years. Looking back, Victor Willis leaves behind more than unforgettable disco classics. He leaves a story about redemption. His career proves that remarkable success can be followed by devastating failure, yet failure does not always become the final chapter. His music filled dance floors for nearly 50 years, but his willingness to confront addiction, rebuild his life and fight for artistic ownership may ultimately become an equally important part of his legacy. The heavy metal community faced a very different kind of loss only days later when Shaun Glass died at the age of 57 following complications from a stroke. Unlike many musicians whose fame centered on mainstream charts, Glass earned enormous respect inside the metal world through decades of relentless touring, recording and mentoring younger artists. His death reminded fans that influence cannot always be measured through record sales. Sometimes the musicians who shape an entire genre are best known by the artists they inspire rather than the general public. Glass first became widely recognized through Broken Hope before later joining Soil, Dirge Within and several other respected metal projects. His aggressive guitar playing and songwriting helped define the sound of modern American heavy metal during a period when the genre was constantly evolving. Rather than repeating familiar formulas, Glass consistently explored heavier sounds while remaining rooted in powerful musicianship. Fellow performers often described him as someone who placed the music above personal recognition, an attitude that earned widespread admiration throughout the industry. His final illness followed complications arising from a stroke. Although stroke survival has improved dramatically because of advances in emergency treatment, recovery often remains uncertain, particularly when complications develop. Glass's passing therefore served as another reminder that serious neurological illnesses can affect anyone regardless of career, reputation, or physical appearance. Fans frequently imagine musicians as larger-than-life figures, yet stories like this reveal how vulnerable every person ultimately remains. Glass rarely placed his private life in front of cameras. While he occasionally shared moments with those closest to him, he preferred allowing interviews to focus on music rather than celebrity culture. That choice became increasingly uncommon in an era when many public figures build careers through personal exposure instead of artistic work. His dedication to keeping family life largely private earned respect from colleagues who believed the spotlight should remain on the music. Family always remained important to Shaun Glass, even though relatively little was publicly disclosed about his relatives. Friends consistently described him as fiercely loyal, generous with younger musicians and committed to maintaining close personal relationships outside the industry. Those qualities explain why tributes following his death came not only from famous performers but also from countless musicians whose careers he quietly encouraged behind the scenes. Ultimately, Shaun Glass leaves behind a legacy built on consistency rather than celebrity. For more than 3 decades he contributed to some of American metal's most respected bands while earning admiration through professionalism, resilience, and generosity. His name may never have dominated mainstream headlines in the same way as some rock stars, but within heavy metal his influence will continue echoing through every guitarist who learned from his work and every band inspired by the music he helped create.
I'm not the devil you think that I am.
For millions of people, the soundtrack of the 1960s represented optimism, freedom, and youthful rebellion. Yet as another legend from that era quietly slipped away, it became impossible to ignore a difficult truth. Every year, more of the musicians who defined one of Britain's greatest musical generations are leaving behind memories instead of new performances. Trevor Ward-Davies, better known simply as Beaky, was one of those names. His death, announced on the 5th of July, 2026 at the age of 81, marked another emotional farewell for fans of classic British pop. Although the exact cause of death was not publicly disclosed, the silence surrounding the medical details suggested that his family preferred privacy during an intensely personal period. That decision deserves respect because public curiosity should never outweigh the dignity of those left behind. To younger audiences, the nickname Beaky might sound unusual, but for fans of 1960s British music it immediately brings back memories of Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch, one of the decade's most distinctive pop groups. While many bands from the era attempted to imitate the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, this group carved out its own identity through humor, memorable stage personalities and infectious songs. Beaky was far more than the drummer keeping time at the back of the stage. His personality became part of the band's brand, proving that audiences often connect with individual characters just as much as the music itself. Hits including Hold Tight, The Legend of Xanadu, Bend It and Zabadak helped establish the group as one of Britain's biggest chart acts during the swinging 60s. Their records sold in huge numbers across Europe and several other international markets, allowing them to compete with far more heavily promoted artists. Looking back, their success demonstrates that originality often beats imitation. Rather than chasing whatever trend happened to dominate the charts, the band embraced theatrical performances and playful songwriting that gave listeners something genuinely different. Before finding fame, Trevor Ward-Davies had lived a very different life. Like several members of the band, he served as a police officer before music completely changed his future. That unusual journey added another layer to his story because it challenged the assumption that successful entertainers always follow a straight path into show business. His experience reminds audiences that remarkable careers can begin in the most ordinary circumstances, and that changing direction later in life is sometimes the decision that defines a person's future. Unlike many celebrities, Beaky kept his romantic relationships largely outside public discussion. Very little about his love life became tabloid material throughout his decades in the entertainment industry. That privacy may explain why his reputation remained focused almost entirely on music rather than personal controversy. In an age when headlines increasingly revolve around celebrity relationships instead of creative achievements, Beaky belonged to a generation that generally preferred allowing performances to speak louder than private affairs. His family also remained largely protected from media attention. Although those closest to him supported his long career, he rarely placed relatives before cameras or discussed personal matters in interviews. That separation between professional success and family life reflected a broader attitude shared by many entertainers of his era. Fame was treated as part of the job rather than an invitation to expose every aspect of private life. One of Beaky's greatest achievements was not simply recording hit singles but helping preserve the spirit of 1960s British music for future generations. Even after the group's commercial peak ended, reunion tours and nostalgia concerts allowed new audiences to experience songs that had shaped an entire generation. Continuing to perform decades after first finding success demonstrated genuine appreciation for loyal fans rather than a desire to relive past glory. Every appearance became another opportunity to celebrate music that refused to disappear. His passing therefore symbolizes something larger than the loss of one drummer. It represents another fading link to an extraordinary chapter in British popular culture. Yet while musicians eventually leave the stage, their recordings remain untouched by time. Every time a classic Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch song begins playing, Trevor Ward-Davies will once again be part of the performance that first made millions of listeners smile. Only days later, another heartbreaking story unfolded, but this one involved a performer whose career had barely reached its full potential. Lauren Bennett died at the age of 36, leaving fans shocked not only by her passing but also by how unexpectedly it arrived. Her death was announced around the 6th and the 7th of July 2026, yet no official cause of death was released publicly. That absence of information quickly fueled speculation across social media, but speculation rarely honors someone's memory. Until families choose to speak, unanswered questions should remain exactly that, unanswered. Respecting privacy is especially important when loved ones are still processing an unimaginable loss. Although Lauren Bennett may not have been recognized by everyone immediately, millions knew her voice. She provided the unforgettable vocals on Elmfaust's global smash party rock anthem, one of the defining party songs of the 2010s. The record became an international phenomenon, topping charts across numerous countries and accumulating billions of streams and views over the following years. Ironically, many listeners danced to her voice for years without ever knowing the singer behind it. That reality highlights how the music industry sometimes celebrates songs while overlooking the artists whose performances made those songs successful. Rather than allowing herself to remain simply a featured vocalist, Bennett continued building her own career. She later joined the girl group GRL, where she showcased a broader range of vocal ability and stage presence. The group attracted significant attention with songs including Ugly Heart and Lighthouse, demonstrating that Bennett possessed the versatility to move beyond dance music into contemporary pop. Her willingness to continue evolving reflected the determination required to survive in an industry where opportunities often disappear as quickly as they appear. Away from the stage, Lauren Bennett maintained a relatively private personal life. Unlike many modern entertainers who document every relationship online, she generally chose not to make romance the center of her public identity. As a result, relatively little was publicly known about her love life. That restraint may have reduced tabloid attention, but it also ensured that discussions about her career remained centered on music rather than celebrity gossip. Family remained equally important throughout her life. Bennett occasionally acknowledged the encouragement she received while pursuing music, but she deliberately avoided placing relatives in the spotlight. Protecting family members from unnecessary public attention demonstrated maturity that is sometimes missing in an entertainment industry increasingly driven by personal exposure. Lauren Bennett's achievements extend far beyond a single hit record. She represented a generation of British performers whose voices reached global audiences through collaborations, songwriting, and group projects rather than constant solo promotion. Her work helped shape one of pop music's biggest eras, even if many listeners only discovered her name much later. That understated influence may ultimately become one of the defining features of her legacy. Her death at just 36 also carries a sobering message. While audiences often assume youth guarantees time, life repeatedly proves otherwise. Bennett's passing serves as a reminder not to measure an artist solely by the number of albums released or awards collected. Sometimes the greatest impact comes from a handful of unforgettable performances that continue bringing joy long after the performer is gone. Lauren Bennett's voice accomplished exactly that, and it will continue echoing through speakers around the world for many years to come.
Guten Tag, Herr Jones.
A familiar face appears on screen for only a few minutes, delivers a performance so convincing that audiences never forget it, then quietly disappears into another unforgettable film. That was Michael Byrne's career in a nutshell. He was never marketed as Hollywood's biggest star, yet he became one of those rare actors whose presence immediately elevated every production. When news emerged that Byrne had died on the 20th of June, 2026 at the age of 82, with the announcement reaching the public on the 1st of July, it felt like the end of another remarkable chapter in British acting. Although no official cause of death was publicly disclosed, the absence of sensational headlines reflected the kind of career Byrne had always maintained. His work spoke far louder than his personal life ever did. Born in London, Michael Byrne built his reputation through patience rather than celebrity. Instead of chasing leading man status, he became one of Britain's most dependable character actors, earning the respect of directors who knew they could rely on him to deliver authenticity in almost any role. That approach ultimately gave him something many leading actors never achieve: longevity. While major stars often struggle once public tastes change, dependable character actors frequently continue working for decades because talent never goes out of fashion. International audiences probably remember Byrne best as the ruthless Nazi officer Colonel Ernst Vogel in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Sharing scenes with Harrison Ford and the late Sean Connery required exceptional screen presence, yet Byrne never appeared overshadowed. His calm, intimidating performance added genuine tension to one of cinema's most beloved adventure films. Villains often determine whether audiences remember a story, and Byrne understood that the most effective antagonists rarely needed exaggerated performances. Quiet confidence could be every bit as frightening as explosive aggression. His film career stretched far beyond one iconic role. Byrne also appeared in Braveheart, The Fourth Protocol, The Professionals, and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1, along with dozens of television productions that made him a familiar face to British audiences. Viewers of classic British television recognized him from programs including Coronation Street, Casualty, Judge John Deed, Midsomer Murders, The Bill, and many others. That remarkable range demonstrated his greatest strength as an actor. He could move comfortably between historical dramas, crime series, fantasy blockbusters, and everyday television without ever feeling out of place. His consistency also reflected something increasingly rare within modern entertainment. Byrne never appeared interested in becoming a celebrity outside acting itself. He focused on craftsmanship instead of publicity. That decision may have limited tabloid coverage, but it earned lasting admiration within the industry. Fellow performers often speak most highly of colleagues who arrive prepared, respect everyone on set and place the production ahead of personal attention. Byrne developed exactly that reputation throughout a career spanning more than 5 decades. Away from cameras, Michael Byrne maintained an exceptionally private life. Unlike many performers whose relationships become constant media discussion, Byrne revealed very little about his romantic life. Public records indicate that he preferred keeping relationships away from interviews and avoided using his personal life to generate publicity. That privacy became one of the defining characteristics of his career because it allowed audiences to focus entirely on his performances rather than his off-screen identity. His family background also remained largely outside public discussion. Byrne rarely spoke in detail about siblings or wider relatives, choosing instead to protect those closest to him from unnecessary public attention. That separation between family life and professional success reflected the values of many actors from his generation, who believed fame belonged to the work rather than to every aspect of their personal lives. Looking back across his achievements, Michael Byrne leaves behind an extraordinary body of work. Although he may never have collected the same number of headline awards as some contemporaries, his contribution to British and international cinema cannot be measured through trophies alone. He became part of films that continue reaching new audiences every year, proving that memorable performances often outlive the actors who created them. Every time viewers revisit Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Braveheart, or the Harry Potter series, Byrne's work continues introducing him to people who may never have known his name before pressing play. Perhaps that is the true definition of a successful acting career. It is not about dominating magazine covers or attracting constant media attention. It is about creating performances that remain believable decades later. Michael Byrne achieved exactly that, building a legacy founded on professionalism, consistency, and remarkable versatility rather than fleeting fame. The stories covered today may involve different generations, different careers, and different genres of entertainment, but they all point towards the same conclusion. Whether it was Bonnie Tyler filling stadiums with unforgettable songs, Victor Willis turning disco into a worldwide movement, Shaun Glass shaping heavy metal, Beaky helping define the sound of the swinging 60s, Lauren Bennett providing the voice behind one of the biggest party anthems of the modern era, or Michael Byrne bringing unforgettable characters to life on screen, each proved that genuine influence is measured by lasting impact rather than headlines. Fame eventually fades, records stop spinning and cinema screens go dark, but great work continues finding new audiences long after the people behind it are gone. That may be the greatest reminder of all, to appreciate remarkable talent while it is still here and to recognize the stories behind the names remembered for generations. If these stories helped uncover the lives behind the headlines, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so similar deep dives keep appearing in the recommendation feed. Share in the comments which musician or actor left the greatest impression and which remarkable life deserves to be explored next. Until next time, thank you for watching.